Many years ago, my wife's best friend got engaged. Then Baruch Hashem, well, I don't have to say Baruch Hashem, but got married. And she asked my wife to say one of the blessings in the chuppah, one of the Sheva Brachot. So, we were like very young in the observant world. And my wife tells me, can I say a bracha under the chuppah, one of the Sheva Brachot? You give the respect to people. And I was like, what? She was like, well, so-and-so is getting married, and she asked me to give one of the Sheva Brachot in the chuppah. I was like, what kind of a wedding is that? She was like, well, they're getting married reform. I was like, oh, no, you can't get a bracha under the chuppah.
Like, if there's a wedding.
So anyways, so listen to this. So anyways, I told my wife what it's a certain friend that she has, and I actually thought that she's aware of what's going on. She used to observe Shabbat, eat kosher. I told her she's getting married in a reform ceremony. And my wife was like, yeah. I said, well, first of all, you can't say a bracha under the chuppah. Second of all, if we go, you can't even be at the chuppah. And if we do want to pay some respects, we can't participate in a lot of the things. Anyways, long story short, I told her, well, let's try to convince her to just get married the right way. So I went to my rabbi, and I told him, listen, one of my wife's good friends is getting married, and she's getting married in a reform ceremony. And do you think I should go and try to, get them to think it over? He told me, don't do anything. I told him, what? He's like, don't try to convince them anything, just leave it as it is. So I said the same thing. Isn't it, if they get married reform, aren't they not married? And he's like, yeah, they're not going to be married. And I was like, but that's a problem, because every time they'll have marital relations, they're doing a isur, a prohibition from the Torah. And forget about the consequences, and this is a isur kareth. So he's like, no, don't do anything. And I was like, okay, you got to explain to me why. Normally I would think you would inspire me to tell me, go and turn the world around. So he told me, listen, if they're not particular with getting married the right way, that if they will get divorced, they won't care about getting divorced the right way. Now what's going to happen now, let's say you somehow convince them, you put a lot of pressure on them, you'll convince them to get married the right way. Now what's going to happen, 5 years will pass, 10 years will pass, they don't get along. They'll get divorced. Now you're not going to be in the picture. And if now they don't care about getting married the right way, so when will come a divorce, you think they'll care about a get? They'll just say goodbye, split the money, and leave. Now, assuming they have kids, and now what's going to happen? They're going to be divorced, but not really divorced, because they don't have a get. Now they'll get remarried and have new kids with a new partner. These kids will be mamzerim.
Well, why would they be mamzers if they never really married the first time?
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what my rabbi told me. If you convince them, if you now convince them, and you'll put a lot of pressure, and you'll be able to convince them to get married the right way, 10 years will pass, they will get divorced. You're not going to be in this picture. Now, if they don't care now, they're not going to care in 10 years. Maybe will, but there is a chance that they won't care down the line. They'll get divorced without a get. Now each one will go and get married again. They will have kids again, and these are mamzerim. So you can't afford that.
So you think of a reform wedding, if they say, oh, I'm doing it too, I'm doing a huppah and bracha, it's still not going to be legit?
Depends how they do it. Now, one of the most important things in the wedding is the witnesses. Now, if the witness is, as long as the witness is not just observing Shabbat, is the pasul for a witness. Excuse me? Yeah, but that's irrelevant. If the witness is, forget about reform or not. Let's say I've seen weddings that the witness wasn't even Jewish. So if the witness is not a kosher witness, there's no any validity.
At least two people
Yeah.
keeping Shabbat.
Kosher
Yeah.
at the time he signs it?
At the time that they,
Or
yeah,
has him stay
at the time.
because after he goes.
Many times you know,
So there's a lot of rules here, but if you really look into it, you'll see that probably 80% of the marriages in America are not real marriages. And I have a wedding album. I literally have a wedding album of all the couples that I got remarried. And I'm not exaggerating, maybe 600-700 couples, because any couple that will come to me and with marital problems, the first thing I ask them is, are you married? Of course we're married. No, are you really married? Yeah, well, we spent $200,000 on the wedding. Well, that's very nice that you spend so much money, but are you really married? And most of them, I find out they're not even married. And we go back, we track it back, and of course they ask, what do you mean if I'm married or not? Of course, we had a chuppah. How was the chuppah? Was the chuppah real chuppah? There was real witnesses there? I don't know. Okay, let's bring the video. Pull out the video, start asking. And once you find out the witnesses are not kosher, that's it. The whole...
That explains
Forget
the problems.
about the mikveh right now and many other things, and just And now what happens? Now the wedding is not a real wedding. There's no real connection, because what really happens in the real chuppah, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is sewing the souls together. There's the right unity. First, it has to come with a shtar. Then it has to come with a kinyan. We use a ring. A shtar is the ketubah, then a kinyan, the ring. Then it has to have bi'ah, has to have marital relations. Ishtar niknet b'shtar, b'kinyan, u'bevi'ah. If they don't have all these three things, then the validity of the marriage is a question here. Now, as long as the first thing, the witnesses are not kosher, that's it. There's no wedding here. Now what happens? They live together. Every time they have marital relations is one of the most severest sins. And all the interaction between them. Now, how can they have shalom bayit like that? It's almost impossible that they'll have shalom bayit. So, specifically, so many couples, when they come to me, the first thing I tell them, are you married? And then I'll tell you a different problem. That's another problem with this is off the subject, but as long as, if they had any type of relations prior to the wedding, that will cause such a separation between the souls that later on will affect their marriage, will affect the kids. So all these problems that we see in marriages, then that's how you can track it back. But specifically in that case, then my rabbi told me, don't do anything. Because if they really don't care about now getting married the right way, if chas v'shalom they get divorced, they won't care about a get. Now you're putting them even in a bigger risk. So the majority of the couples in America, the weddings in America, are not really weddings.
kids there are still Jewish though, right? They just have dirty
Yeah,
religion.
it doesn't affect the Jewishness,
Mess up their delusion,
but
though.
it definitely messes up a lot of things. And needless to say that the parents are sinning every time they're together. Needless to say, it's affecting the child emotionally, mentally, physically, health-wise, and it's not going to affect specifically if the person is Jewish or not. But nevertheless, in Israel, for example, the Rabbanut are so strict, you can't go around it. Now, in the last maybe decade, they more breaking the rules. I mean, people who don't want to go through the Rabbanut, so they'll go to Cyprus and get married there and come back. But the Rabbanut in Israel are so strict, they'll drive you nuts. So, but they're right, because now the weddings here are real weddings. In America, I don't know how it is in Europe and other places, in America, most of the marriages in America are not done the right way, and most of the people are not really married.
Are we allowed to attend?
That depends already exactly what's going on there. The chuppah for sure you cannot attend. If the chuppah is officiated by a woman, or all these jokes that they're doing, you can't even be at the chuppah. You can actually not, because by being in the chuppah, you're testifying that you agree with what's going on there. Especially when you look like this, you're not allowed to be there. You're mamash not allowed to be there. And there's other, and then forget about the Suda is kosher. Even if they order for you kosher food that comes in all the nylons, you still have a problem eating in that Suda. Because the Suda itself is not kosher. I mean, there's all sorts of problems here. Yeah, Yeah, most of the people will not even go to such a wedding because there's so many problems. You can't be attending the dancing. You can't attend the ceremony. What are you attending here? You're just coming to drop off a check.
The witnesses, do they have to be just people randomly standing there? How can you look? Or do they have to be like
No, they have to be designated witnesses, and they have to see, they have to witness, they have to be kosher, they have to sign, they have to check the ring, they have to check the yichud, and they're designated witnesses.
What happens in the time of the Torah was given? One of the ways you could get married is just by having
Marital relations.
Right.
But that's changed. After the Torah, that changed.
Yeah,
That's why if you were last time, I don't know when you were last time in the chuppah, listen to the bracha, the nosach of the bracha, and the end is Kedat Moshe b'Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu brought the rule. I know before that you would just go into the room, have marital relations, and story's over. But with Moshe Rabbeinu, it changed. You have to have three conditions. You have to have a shtar, a document. That's the ketubah. You have to have some kinyan. Now they do a ring, because the kinyan has to have value, and you have to have biyah. Biyah is the marital relations. You're missing one of them, it's a problem. So here comes another question, how the ketubah was filled. So there is less of a problem if a woman will fill in the ketubah. That would, okay, but the fine. The main problem is the witnesses. And if the witnesses are not kosher, now I know there's a lot of leniencies here, which I specifically don't agree. That I've been to a wedding once, and I saw, and I told the rabbi, I told him, where's the witnesses here? So he says, well, I'm one of them, not me. He told me I'm one of them, and this is the other witness. You know, he told me some ridiculous things. I made him do teshuvah right now. He did teshuvah right now, so now he doesn't have any more sins. He's now taking on himself to observe Shabbat. I'm like, what kind of a nonsense is that? No, and why? There was one lady.
Is that legit?
No,
But
of course it's not.
They're using the logic of the
Yeah.
the hatan under the huppah who says he's really a Rashi, but he's a tzaddik.
There's all sorts of nonsense that people come up with. I know there's one lady that I was we were helping her, and she was in a very bad marriage, and she wanted to get out of the marriage. She became observant, and her husband wasn't observant. And I mean, after they got married, it caused a lot of problems, and she wanted out. And she knew he's not going to give her a get. And she was like, I don't want to be a guna, a woman that doesn't have a get. So I told her, let's check if you're really married. And we went to the photographer and the videographer and get the pictures and get the videos and everything. And I told her, your loophole is if you find out that one of the witnesses is not kosher, and you'll get out. Both the witnesses were kosher. It wasn't even, she was literally like locked into it. But there was another situation like that also with the lady. I told her, let's see if the witnesses are not kosher, and she told me one of them is for sure not kosher. I know him. He's the uncle of the groom, which was already a problem because a witness cannot be a relative. But when we went to the rabbi says no. He gave us and again some ridiculous excuse that he was a suffix and this, and he did teshuvah, and he did teshuvah under the chuppah, and I was like, what kind of nonsense is that? Either he's observing Shabbat or he doesn't. Besides, if you look at the rule in halakha, even if he's a thief, is possible to be a witness. So the problem is that the main issue right now will be with the witnesses. And most of the weddings, the witnesses are not kosher. Once the witness is not kosher, the ceremony is not valid, and it's not really a wedding. And it causes a lot of problems, spiritual and emotional problems. And then I'm not talking about shlom bayit, because there's no real good connection there. And
it's hard to make it a kosher wedding, right? When he's puppah,
yeah,
rabbi, two witnesses, grain.
Yeah.
And the rabbi can be one of the witnesses.
The rabbi can be one of the witnesses.
Sure. If the woman's in nida, then the woman's in nida. For sure, it's not a kosher marriage.
This will be a little bit less of a doubt, because they still had the marital relations, even though it was done in a isur. So
and then they would be married.
But one might say that they are married.
Might.
But it depends who you will go by.
Take them and throw them in a river.
Yeah?
Just wait after she's nida and then have the relation.
Excuse me?
Wait until after.
Exactly, that's what happens now. If it's done, there's many cases that the woman is nida on the night of the wedding and they can be together, so they're waiting the couple days or whatever, and then they complete it, so to say. That's why b'diavad one might say, oh, okay, so you can somehow, how do you say, la'avir et ze, okay, fine. Depends who you go by. Some will say no, because the first biyah, the first marital relations was in nida, then it's disqualifying it. Some will say no, fine, wait a couple days.
Together in the Beit Yichud in that situation?
Excuse me?
Can they be together in the Beit Yichud?
Yeah, just can't touch each other. But I'll tell you what's the problem with what you said. Because if they're if it's like observant couple, they will wait a couple days. But if it's not an observant couple, she will continue to be in nida. That's why for some opinions, it's an opinion that will say even b'diavad it's not going to hold, because she will continue being nida the whole marriage.
Yeah, so
Unless 30 years later she'll do teshuvah and go to the mikveh.
So let's say they never do and there was a nida, then the marriage never gets consummated?
Then there's a safek here if it was finalized, so to say.
Once
But
the kids from that quote-unquote marriage, when they don't shidduch it,
well, it's not going to affect. Definitely not going to affect their status of a Jew. It's just going to affect them tremendously spiritually and emotionally.
Their taboo should be destroyed.
Yeah, they have such.
Harder teshuvah.
Yeah, now the kids are going to have to deal with a lot of problems: health, mental, emotional.
They can clean the taboo.
If they do teshuvah. But that's why, for example, us, that our parents, there's a good chance, weren't married 100%, or were nida, or all these things. That's why for us the teshuvah is so hard. That's why for us the klipa that we have to deal with is so powerful. Because when the parents are together, when a husband and wife, let's say when a man and woman are together, and let's say not for the sake of a one night thing, talking about a husband and wife, innocent people, they just got married. When they're together, they are creating the garments of the soul of the child. If it's done 100% holy, then they're dressing the neshama with holy garments. If it's done not holy, then they're dressing the neshama with unholy garments. The more unholy it is, the more unholy the garments are. That's why you go now to a secular school here in Israel, you'll see the kids are wild, fresh, rude, like violent. It's like so normal. Where is it coming from? So it's a combination of many, many things. Also, a big part of it is also the food that the kids eat. But even just the sensitivity to spirituality. The zero.
They're coming down in Eretz Israel, so their soul is a high level soul because it's coming in Eretz Israel.
Yeah, but still
in a bad way.
Yeah. So the problem is.
soul with a bad garment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
what
you
about
have
what
the
about
higher the
Moshe came
kedusha,
through
the higher
Lot
the
and
evil.
his daughters? That was
The what?
strange.
The what?
When with Lot's daughters.
Yeah, that's where Mashiach comes from, by the way.
Right.
Mashiach comes from the most hardest klipa. Yeah, that's where Mashiach comes from.
Mashiach today will probably come from one of these marriages, and he'll have to.
Many say that Mashiach is going to be a Baal Teshuvah. He has to come from a Baal
His parents
Teshuvah.
won't be so
Ouch.
Yeah. So
If there's a high level,
don't say that in certain places, you might get knocked out.
a high level of kedusha and a high level of tuma. So,
What happens?
No, I'm saying where there's high kedusha, there's high
No doubt.
tuma. So they're
Yeah.
coming in to their
Yeah, but I can.
is tuma. Not his for that. I'm saying the kids this day and age in Israel.
Yeah,
Who are
it's not only-
behavioral problems.
Excuse me?
The revolution of truth.
Yeah.
Everything's all sheker. It's almost like we're in Alma sheker.
Yeah. This is Olam HaSheker. Yeah, the world of deception.
Then how does that work then with a person's soulmate if they're coming into
That's
the world?
that's another problem. That's why later on the next generation are so separated that even for them to find their other half is a problem, because they're in such a side of darkness.
But souls don't mate.
That's what you think.
Whatever, they're zivug, whatever
Yeah.
you call it.
No. Why you think you call it a zivug? The souls do mate, by the way. Yeah, there's a yichud, and there's what's called a zivug elyon. They do mate, maybe not in the way that how we're picturing it. But when two souls get together, it's an unbelievable pleasure for the souls. Hmm? Yeah, definitely.
Like the same soul.
100%. Definitely. But the problem with marriages is a big problem. I spoke about it a long time ago. A lot of people didn't like what I have to say, because the majority of the marriages out in America are not real marriages. But now go tell a person that they're married. I have a student, and she told me a few issues that they have in their life, and then I told her the same thing. I told her, "You sure you're married with your husband?" "Well, what are you talking about? We're married for 40 years. Long story short, we checked what we needed to check, and they weren't really married. And I told her, "Okay, you got to get married." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to tell him that?" She's becoming observant constantly, and she's pulling her husband with her. So every time she changes things, let's start with kosher, and then the candles, and then the Shabbat, and then the modesty. And then I told her that. She was like, I don't even know how I'm going to tell him that we have to get remarried. And I told her, listen, try. What are you going to lose? And they got married. I have a picture of them. They're in their mid-60s. And she got dressed. They made a whole thing out of it.
How long were they married for?
But 40 years.
I heard something like that. And then they had kids. We were 35 years. And they had to separate. And they couldn't stay in the same house together until they worked it out.
No, with that specific couple, then they separated for 7 days, not out different houses, just didn't touch each other. She had to go to the mikveh again. I mean, she never went to the mikveh.
First time.
And she went to the mikveh, and they separated. They did a chuppah. She got dressed in a white dress. They made it fun, renewed their vows or whatever. And she, of course, they went into the album. I have pictures of them. It's nice. I mean, you see that, and she actually later on did tell me everything that was a problem slowly worked out. I mean, they had one child that was very sick, and they couldn't figure out why. The doctors didn't even know why the child is sick. It wasn't a child; it was a man in the 30s. They couldn't figure out. They couldn't find out what's wrong with that person. But anyways, it causes a lot of problems.
Wait. The kid healed after they got married? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So it can affect the grown kids?
Yeah,
after the parents
100%. 100%. I told my mom, I convinced my mom in her late 60s to go to the mikveh. I mean, my mom is, Baruch Hashem, she's very observant. Not very, but she's observant now. And every time I added another thing, and at some point I told her, it's pretty sensitive. It's, after all, it's your mom. And I told her, tell me, do you ever go to the mikveh? She was like, well, I went to the mikveh the night before I got married. And I was like, since then, never? She was like, no. So.
Isn't there a Gemara that says that all the babies are in the womb? The womb is going to nourish Rivka? I mean, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't make any mistakes. How do we have these problems?
100% there's no mistakes, but I would say easily that a lot of the shidduchim are now not the real other half. For many different reasons. If a person now is going to sin severe sins and loses the zchut of finding his other half, his other half will go somewhere else. Someone else will marry his other half, and either will be ariri, not marrying anybody, or marrying something temporary. It's not so easy to find your other half. You can easily mess up your shidduch, especially with sins.
Was it determined in advance before they were even born that each one will marry?
I can hear you.
Wasn't it determined, or isn't it determined by the babies as still
Yeah.
born?
It just says who's the other half. Doesn't necessarily say they're going to marry each other. But we have free choice, and if a person now does certain sin, if a person now does sin of arayot, of forbidden relations, there's a very good chance they're going to miss their other half. Because what happens is, now a man will go to a woman that is not his wife, and they will have marital relations. Now what happens is that he's dressing his sperm. The sperm doesn't fit into a body. The zera has to go into a certain body. If it's not for the sake of procreation, especially not with your other half, then these souls don't have bodies. And they go up to the Kadosh Baruch Hu and say, listen, this Ploni, this guy created us, and we don't have bodies. Now what happens is, that this is what the Zohar says, when a man and a woman are together, the wife of the Samech Mem, she stands next to the bed. And her name is Lamed Yud Taf. she stands next to the bed. She's waiting for a drop to come out. Now what happens is she takes these drops and she impregnates herself. And she brings down to the world demons. Now what happens? The Samech Mem comes to this world, he's walking around, and you know what he sees? He sees kids that look like him. Hey, what's going on? They look like me. And he goes to his wife and he says, what are these kids? She says, no, I got pregnant from so-and-so. And he goes to so-and-so, and Samech Mem will go to Mr. whatever his name is and will bother him. So that's why the sin
every time somebody's supposed to see, right?
Yeah.
It's not just when they're with their
when it's not with a woman, it's a little bit different. It's much more severe to spill seed with a woman that is not your wife than to do it by yourself. Do it by yourself, it's a different problem, because these souls don't have bodies, and even physical bodies. You know, look at the bracha we say when you finish drinking something. Borei nefashot rabot. You create many nefashot. Now these nefashot, they don't have bodies to be placed in, and they go up to Shamayim. And they say to the Kadosh Baruch Hu, listen, so and so created me, and who's going to feed me? Who's going to zan v'mefarnes? Who's going to take care of me? And Kadosh Baruch Hu himself says, go to the person who created you, and you take from him. And there's different severities. Also depends. I mean, it can be so many isurim at the same time. A man can be with a non-Jewish woman that is not his wife while she's nida. Just look how many isurim of kareth is going in one shot. Zera levatala, a non-Jewish woman, a woman who's nida, a woman that is not his wife, can reach to 5-6 kretot in one act. So a person does such a severe sin, he can lose his other half. What's going to happen is a different person will come and take the bashert. That's why there's a lot of shlom bayit issues, because it's not always the right other half. And what happens now if the woman right now is waiting and waiting and waiting? The potential husband is somewhere having fun, and in the meantime, souls have to come down through the woman. So they'll give her a temporary husband, only to bring the souls down. And then the temporary husband will die when he's young. And this is all, ashgacha pratit, that specific person had to die young because he did this, and Kadosh Baruch Hu all day long is this engineer of what's going on. If you would see what a mess, if you would get a view from above how it looks, it's probably chaos in this world. Now, for example, when I told you with my mother, I came to her at some point. I was like, did you ever go to the mikveh? And she was like, well, I went to the mikveh the night before I got married. And I was like, since then you were never in a mikveh? And she was like, no. And I was like, so I was born into nida? And she was like, well, don't kill me for that, but yeah. So I told her, well, you have to go to the mikveh. And she was like, but I don't have my cycle already for 20 years. It doesn't matter.
That's
but
good, one time only.
So I told her it doesn't matter, but you still didn't go after the last time. And she was like, well, what good would it do? I said, well, first of all, you are nida. The fact you didn't go to the mikveh, you are still nida. More than that, retroactively, if you go to the mikveh, it will change retroactively all these years.
Really?
And I told her, if you don't want to do it for yourself, then do it for me. Retroactively, it will take effect.
Make it so that you weren't born.
No, but the effect of it, of the impurity, will retroactively be removed.
Okay.
And I told her, if you don't want to do it for yourself, then do it for me. And if you don't want to do it for me, then do it for your kids, for your grandkids, because it's affecting all generations. She was like, oh, the grandkids? Okay, I'm doing it. So, but I told her, don't think it does. It's affecting me and my kids too. Because it's like, the thing with the branch. You have a lot of people sitting on a branch, and the first one is cutting it, the whole branch goes down. This is one of the biggest problems with kareth, which people don't really realize the severity of kareth. If a man is doing a sin of kareth, his kids, his grandkids, everybody gets affected, because his nefesh gets cut off. So it's like cutting off the branch, and everything after that gets cut off.
If the woman does it, then her husband would need to make it as well, because he touched the nida, so he
Yeah.
needed to make it as well, right?
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
what if he didn't and he touched her, it wouldn't go back on her, it doesn't work like that.
No.
But
But anyways, there's a lot of problems with that. And unfortunately, there's not enough education about it. What?
Is it a full act, like a full
Yeah. Well, the kareth first of all has to be done with a b'mezid. You have to know what's going on. In order for the kareth to take effect, you have to know what's going on. If a person now desecrates Shabbat by mistake, was born in Greenville, Indiana, and has never heard even about Shabbat, then his chilulei Shabbat is not kareth, because in order for Shabbat to be kareth, you have to have 2 witnesses, and you have to have what's called hatra'ah, a warning. Now, if there's no 2 witnesses and there's no warning, then it wouldn't be kareth. It will be mitabi de shamayim. It will still be a severe sin. But in order for kareth to take effect, kareth is not so simple, by the way. I know a lot of people throwing the word kareth in the air. Kareth, first of all, goes only on the nefesh. Kareth doesn't affect the ruach and the neshama. That's why it says in the Torah, v'nichreta hanefesh ha'i me'amea. It doesn't say nichreta neshama. And kareth, the kareth goes on all the 9 sfirot of the nefesh. Because the nefesh has 9 sfirot in them, everything has the sfirot. And the kareth goes only on the first 9 sfirot. That's only because Avraham Avinu, he made a deal with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, any sin like this, and like this, there will be kareth. So in the Brit Ben Abtarim, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu and Avraham Avinu made a deal and they cut the ram and went through it, the Avraham Avinu made a deal with Hashem that any person that will fail in kareth, the kareth will only affect the first 9 sfirot. And the last the top sfira, they will not touch it, which is called keter. That's why you see that keter and kareth are the same letters. So the kareth doesn't affect the sfira, the keter shebanefesh. That's where a person can actually do teshuvah. But again, the kareth can affect the pnimiut of the keter and the chitzoniut of the keter. It's more complex than that.
But if he did teshuvah, then we fix all the lower.
Well, to make teshuvah for kareth is not easy.
Or do you have to die for it to take place?
No. To die, that's for certain sins that teshuvah will not help, such as chilul Hashem. You can't do teshuvah for chilul Hashem in this world. The death of the person atones for chilul Hashem.
Where does Ruach Shtut play in there for understanding or knowing what's going on?
Well, then this is a very long discussion because first of all, you have the group of people that are mamash atinok shenishba. And atinok shenishba, the kareth cannot be affected. It cannot affect it because they don't know. Now, atinok shenishba, a captured baby between the nations. The effect cannot take place because he doesn't know what he's doing. That's completely not knowing what he's doing. Now many people say, I'm also a tinok shenishba. Everybody's a tinok shenishba. Well, that's just being very kind and saying that everybody's tinok shenishba. But if you know what you're doing, you're not a tinok shenishba. Of course, one can start questioning, what about the ruach shtut? What about the yetzer hara? What about my te'avot? Nevertheless, if I know right now what's going to happen with my act and I still do it, there's a yediyah, there's a knowledge here, then that will affect, it will affect to be kareth.
Is there such a thing as a Tinok Shenishba in Israel?
In Israel? Why not?
Well, the fact that they reject Shabbos means they know there is a Shabbos.
In Israel, it's a little bit of a problem because, I grew up in Israel and I grew up very not observant. And one can argue and say, how can you be a Tinok Shenishba if it's in the curriculum of school to celebrate the holidays? So obviously there's holidays. Obviously there's a Shabbat, because in the curriculum of school you don't learn on Shabbat. And you have enough religious people screaming at you, it's Shabbat today, it's Yom Kippur. How can one argue in Israel and say I'm a Tinok Shenishba? So I can tell you only from my own experience, many people question in my personal experience, how come you were dealt in such a harsh way, you are a Tinok Shenishba? And I said, well, I could have used all the ones who told me that I'm a Tinok Shenishba, I could have used them up there as senegorim, as defense attorneys. Because in Shamayim they told me, who are you kidding? You can't come and flag in Shamayim, I'm a Tinok Shenishba. You knew things. How many times people came and told you, it's Yom Kippur today, you can't eat. You just didn't feel like doing it. So you,
said you're not.
yeah. How can you come and say, I mean, if you really grew up in, I don't know, some mountain in Iceland, and you can say, okay, I'm a tinok sheni, I don't even heard of such a thing. But in Israel specifically, you know when all the holidays are, you walk in the street, there's not one city in Israel that you're not going to find an observant individual that will come and tell you, it's Shabbat today, put tefillin on, you can't eat pork. So in Israel it's very hard to say a tinok shenishba. Now it becomes very sophisticated because you can be a tinok shenishba in certain things because you really don't know, and not tinok shenishba in other things. So nevertheless, you know, I remember when I first figured that out, that I came to my rabbi and I told him, if this is the case, if a person is doing something that he doesn't know, so it won't affect his neshama for kareth, then maybe I should not tell anybody anything. Now I'm making it worse. If I'm going to come and tell a person now you're desecrating Shabbat, it's a prohibition from the Torah. Now I'm putting him in a bigger problem because now he knows it's Shabbat. Now he knows what he's doing. Now it will be kareth. So nevertheless, you still have to bring the awareness to an individual to bring sure even the chilul Shabbat will not be shogeg. That's also pretty severe. So there's a lot of issues, especially when it comes to kareth. There's a lot of isurei kareth. Shogeg already, again, shogeg is also, it's not as severe. Shogeg means by mistake. That I didn't mean to. So, but especially when it comes to everything that has to do with marriages, there's a lot of problems. A lot of problems with that. And later on you see the next generation. Now, not only that, don't go so far. Let's keep it close to home. Even a married couple that got married the right way in a chuppah, and they're observant to the Torah, and she goes to the mikveh, and everything is according to the book, they can also fail in the exact same thing. Because specifically, exactly like you said, the more kedusha, the more the klippah has yanikah from. So a married couple who's observant and they follow all the rules, they are subject to even greater attack. Why? Because you know what it means, a zera, a drop of sperm that's coming from an observant couple, that everything is done perfect. It's like kidnapping the prince.
You mean it's by mistake and that you don't even know?
No, that's the thing, that a married couple that is observant, that's why there's so many rules. One little drop will come out, that drop is worth a lot. And next to every bed, Lamed Yud Taf is standing there. Doesn't matter who you are. Now this is like...
keep her out.
She makes her rounds, doesn't she?
She what?
She makes her rounds.
Yeah, she's very busy.
No, I heard weird segulas that keep her away.
There's all sorts of things that that's why even a married couple that you have to be very particular, because your drop is like literally kidnapping the son of the king versus kidnapping some regular schmo from the street. So specifically she comes and goes after the more holy people.
So basically, if the drop comes out and it's not directly to the woman, that counts.
Yeah, it can be a problem.
You say it's equal to go in mikveh, it stops it now, right?
You mean after the fact?
Yeah.
Listen, this helps, but you have to be holy here. That's why if you go through all the laws of the way marital relations has to be, you see it's very, very strict. One drop will come out, that's a problem. And of course, if it comes out after, that's a whole different thing. But there's many ways that the drops can come out before you start even the marital relations, and it will be a problem. So needless to say, when it comes to specifically this act, you have to be so particularly careful, and it has to be super perfect. But you know what? You see right away how you see the kids. Look at the kids, and you see a difference in the behavior, and you see on the faces. The face is different, the behavior is different. The yirat shamayim, the everything.
I've got so many times walking around and meeting kids, like these kids are glowing here.
Yeah, certain kids, you look at them and you see clean, no junk there. Needless to say, then later on, you see the behavior, no violence and no being rude and fresh and aggressive, and so I know it sounds very intimate, but I know, first of all, every kid, I know exactly when and how, what. I have everything written down, what hour, and I see on my kids the difference of kids and tracking it back to how the whole process was. And I can see right away
Published journal science fiction.
No, it's personal.
it's very personal, but listen, I know exactly which day, what hour, everything happened. I mean, it's very easy to track it when you're observant. And yeah, you go by the mikveh, and I mean, you can write down. I know it sounds kind of ridiculous to write down 2:32 a.m. on this day. If you know the hour of the consumption, is it consumption or conception? You can make a real good calculation about this neshama. It's not about the birthday. It's the conception day and the conception hour. And if you aim a certain hour, what did we learn yesterday in the Zohar? We didn't finish. The days, every hour is divided, and every hour of the day is a different combination of Hashem's name.
After Chatzot, on Shabbat, it's the highest.
Yeah, and if you know how to aim for the right combination of names at the right hour, then yeah.
That's what.
Yeah, around we can read it. This is exactly what it's talking about with Lamed Yud Taf.
If this kid
I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't like hearing about all this because it's a way too harsh on them to hear that
Dissonance.
Lamed Yud Taf is standing next to your bed while you're mating, and she's waiting to take a drop, and what's going on in the room, and why every little thing makes a big difference there. I mean, לא פשוט.
What does it say there?
It's long. Maybe we'll learn this in one of the Zohar classes.
If this kid who was born as a result of this relationship,
Excuse me?
teshuvah, then is the slate like clean?
Yeah, if he did the right teshuvah, then for no questions here, but it's going to be a very hard teshuvah.
But there was a Reish Lakish, it's a high one, the faith.
Eh? No, אין דבר עומד בפני התשובה. If you do teshuvah the right way, you'll get rid of everything.
Elders and mitzvahs, right?
Yeah, but I can tell you that the teshuvah will be hard to do teshuvah. Yeah.
This age we're living in is so bad.
So,
There's a little extra rachamim in souls in this world because they can't live the standard they did 2, 3, 4, 500 years ago.
Okay, maybe there is some rachamim. Maybe there is.
you said up there that there wasn't really, right?
Listen, I'm not the one who to tell you how much mercy Hashem will give to who. I'm not
Individual cases.
I'm not in the House of Representatives.
But in general.
In general, yes, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, yes, can arouse a lot of rachamim, but depends who's the person, where they come from, what's their background. I don't like so much the approach of we're such a low generation, and I don't buy that. I don't like when people say we're a weak generation and there's a lot of temptations. And what did they didn't have temptation 400 years ago.
Can't be as bad as generation of Noah.
Yeah.
The whole world was destroyed.
Yeah, trust me, there was arayot also 2,000 years ago. There were homosexuals also 2,000 years ago. So maybe now you have it a little bit more accessible. But what you don't think they had? Look what happened in
When they were in
Sdom.
Egypt, there were 49 levels of teshuvah.
Yeah, look at Sdom. All day long there was parties there. Don't you think all Sdom was that one big
They
gay
didn't get
parade?
married, though. They didn't get married.
Doesn't matter. I'm just saying that we didn't invent the wheel. Okay, so we have now a little bit more access through the internet. Oh, it's a little bit more easy now. But what do you think? There wasn't this ta'ava 200 years ago.
There's no new sins.
Yeah, this is one of the first sins in the book. So I don't buy this, we're a weak generation. I think we're actually a very powerful generation. Because if I'm able to serve Hashem in such darkness, and you see shuls that are full of people, and go to the mikveh at 4 o'clock in the morning, you'll see a lot of men there, that's not weak, that's strong. We are a strong generation. Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem pulled him out on the mountain, and he told him, and the Torah says that he showed him Ad Hayam Acharon, till the last ocean. The Chazal are explaining it, dorshim on it, don't say ad hayam ha'acharon, say ad hayom ha'acharon. Moshe Rabbeinu saw till the last day. And the Midrash explains that Moshe Rabbeinu was most impressed with our generation. Hashem told him, this is the generation you're impressed with? I'm showing you now the generation of the Tanaim. Look at these giants. Look at these the generations of the prophets, the Achonim, the Rishonim, the Mekubalim. Look at the... And he's, Moshe Rabbeinu, no, that's the generation I'm impressed with. Hashem tells him, why? He says, because the Tanaim, they had a revelation of Shekhinah. And the Nevi'im also, the prophets also had revelation. They had Bet HaMikdash. All these people, of course they were in that level. But look at this generation. They don't have even one drop of godly revelation here. There's no shine of the Shekhinah. They're in such exile, such darkness, and they still wake up in the morning so early to pray, and they learn and they do all the mitzvot. That's power. That's powerful. We don't have a Bet HaMikdash. We don't have a tzaddikim with Ruach HaKodesh that we can go to them and see them doing muftim, and we're still so observant. I'm sorry to tell you, we're not a weak generation. We're a powerful generation.
Where did it say that?
Excuse me?
Where did it say that with Moshe and Hashem?
It says in the Midrash.
In the middle of the street?
But look at our generation. I'm sorry to tell you, I was on Saturday, I went to the Tzanz mikveh, the Shem and Ever, I don't know why it was closed. It was packed. 7 o'clock in the morning, packed with men. And you know what? One mikveh, they forgot, I don't know, maybe they forgot to switch off. The hot mikveh was like a soup. It was boiling hot. Man, people are just going in there into the cold mikveh. I'm looking at that, and I'm telling to myself, Hashem, only because of this you should bring Mashiach. What a Msirut Nefesh. Hundreds of men just going there, freezing cold, going all the way down to the mikveh of the Ari. I don't accept it that we are a weak generation. We might have a lot of temptations, but I don't think that 200 years ago didn't have these temptations also.
Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan said that our tikkun is to be happy about being Jewish.
Yeah.
The fact that we're still Jewish in this darkness is crazy.
You know, I saw a sticker not too long ago on some car, and it says in Hebrew, Kamta baboker, tagid todah, all the rest is a bonus. You woke up in the morning, be happy, all the rest is a bonus. So I don't like the attitude in our generation of like, no, be soft, and people shouldn't hear about all these things, and I don't agree with that. I think it's fraud. I think you're frauding people when you're not telling them the truth to the face. I was in a lecture in California, and there was one guy, he came to my near-death experience lecture. The next day he came to a different lecture. The whole lecture is crying, and I'm like feeling bad. Why am I making this guy crying now? Comes to me at the end of the lecture, he's in his late 60s, and he tells me, you know, yesterday and today, what you said in these 2 days, I never heard such things. He's like, I've been driving for 30 years on Shabbat to the synagogue. Nobody ever told me I'm not allowed to drive to the synagogue. 30 years I'm attending the synagogue. And he's like, I'm so upset at the rabbi, but he could never tell me I'm not allowed to drive on Shabbat. And he's like crying, and he's saying, thank you for letting me know. Now I know I'm not allowed to drive to shul. So, and he was, in other words, upset. He's like, I'm upset at the rabbi. Why, you couldn't tell me? What, are you afraid I'm not going to show up? Afraid I'm not going to give you my annual donation? Or whatever it is, or I'm not going to, your shul is going to be empty? What are you afraid of? I really don't like that attitude. I do not like the attitude of sugarcoating the reality. And no, it's okay. It's not okay. Now you're talking a little bit about Lamed Yud Taf, Zera Levatala, everybody. Oh no, don't scare the people. Don't scare them. Okay, so what? I'm going to lead them straight into Gehenom. You know what's going to happen? I'm going to be prosecuted in Shemayim. I'm going to have a lawsuit. You knew and you didn't say anything? Sorry to tell you, I'm not taking a chance to be sued. Besides, you have the right to know. If I know something and I'm holding it from you because I'm afraid, because you're going to react in a certain way, I'm frauding you. That's not the Torah. I mean, there's ways of saying everything. Doesn't mean I have to come now with a bag of thrones and throw it on you. But there's a way to say everything.
Shouldn't you withhold if you know the person's not innocent?
Well, first of all, no. Depends. It really depends. Here, there's no black and white here. Because first of all, you don't know how the person will react. I'll give you an example. I was once in a lecture, and at the end of the lecture, a bunch of young guys came, and they were like making fun the whole lecture. And at the end, one of the guys comes and tells me, tell him, he points at one of the guys. One of the guys there says, points at one of the other guys, says, can you tell him what happens when you spill semen? He doesn't believe me. So I tell him everything, one deal, and he's all laughing at me and mocking and making jokes and, making jokes and giving high fives to each other and like that, and I'm like, okay, you seem pretty brave now. I don't think you're going to be so brave when you're going to have to face it. Anyways, long story short, I also was having the question, should I maybe not say anything? They might not accept it. Maybe half a year, 8 months down the line, I bump into some man on the street, and he tells me, how are you? Oh, yeah, Baruch Hashem, I'm okay, how are you? He's like, you don't recognize me? I'm like, no, sorry, I don't. So he tells me, I was in that lecture, remember a few months ago in Queens? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember you. He says, this time he had like a little fuzzy cheek, a little bit of hair, a big yarmulke, tzitzit. And I'm like, no, now I recognize you. So he told me, you ruined my life. I told him, well, you look much better now, and I think I actually improved your life, I didn't ruin it. He's like, for half a year, every time I was with my girlfriend, I had a vision I had of your ugly face. Every time I was with my girlfriend, I was thinking about you. And I was like, well, I hope you weren't thinking about me. And no, I just saw your ugly, that's what he told me, I saw your ugly face, you ruined it for me. And I was like, good, but I see you made a change. So the point is that there is a way of saying everything. And if somebody can't sustain the weight, don't put that weight over on that person, he might crash. That's why there's no black and white here. You have to feel the person and see what they can handle. Sometimes a person needs to get the punch to the face. He might not accept it in the beginning, but you plant a seed inside so deep that it's going to be in the mind working. And this guy, he didn't accept it. He was mocking me. He was laughing at me the whole night, making jokes. He was like the jokester of the guy, of the group. In my mind, I was like laughing. Yeah, you're laughing now. I don't think you're going to be laughing so much when you meet that day. But you know what? It was planted so deep in his mind that he couldn't let go of it. When it comes to kiruv, to outreach, to talking to another person, can't make a manual. There's no black and white here. You have to really know what you're doing. You have to really, this is an art. To do outreach is an art. You really need to know how much pressure to put, when to remove the pressure. That's why for years I was refusing to do videos online, especially for my story. Because I'm sitting in a room like this, there's a different dynamics, different energy, everything is different. On a screen, you're looking at a screen. You can't argue with the screen. And if you don't understand something, who are you going to ask? And there's a block of energy. When it's in a room, it's totally different. That's why when I go to lectures, I don't like these lectures of 500 people, because it's not the same. I'd rather sit in front of 40 people, 30 people, then the energy is spread equally, each one, and each one gets exactly the dose they need to hear. So when it comes to kiruv, it's not so simple. There's no manual saying, don't say this, don't say that, say this, say that. Some people you can tell them straight to the face, Habibi, you cannot do this. This is a isur kareth, and they will accept it. And some people, they need to hear it. It will shock them. They might not agree with you, but you have to plant the seed. And some people, you need to know when to pull the reins, let go a little bit of the reins. There's no black and white here. But needless to say, now I'm talking about in general right now, when you're working with somebody over and over, a person comes to your shul for 30 years, come on, in 30 years you don't tell him you don't know how to drive. Give him the first year. And then tell him, by the way, why don't you start coming and sleeping around us? You really shouldn't drive on Shabbat. There's a way to do it. No, it was actually, I don't want to say what type of a shul, she's not going to have Lashon Hara. It was an Orthodox Hasidic shul. And the rabbi just there, yeah? And that's the shul where I spoke. There was a few shuls in that area. They invited me to speak. And No, in Los Angeles. So,
They didn't know how to tell it.
you know, I think that in many places, I don't want to say, because Chas v'Shalom will be interpreted maybe as Lashon Hara. Sometimes it's different shuls. The rabbi is afraid to be direct, because A, he's afraid to scare off the congregation. More than that, money, yeah, you're right, yeah. If you're going to put too much pressure on the congregation, there's not going to be donations, there's not going to be support.
You get fired.
Or you get fired. Well, this is if you actually work for the shul, and then I know a rabbi that worked for a shul. It lasted maybe 11 months because they told him, don't say this, don't say that. At some point he cracked. At some point he's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And of course he got fired. He says, I can't go by your rules. Yeah, but I'm talking about an independent shul. There's many independent shuls, and there's different agendas why I would or would not say things. I know many shuls that they will allow certain things to happen because there was one shul that was that I know of that was really supported by one man, and the man's wife is not even Jewish, so everything was around around that man, and the sad part is the rest of the congregations, they saw that the rabbi is not 100%, so they left anyways. So it's very hard to find somebody who's straight out, this is the truth, this is the Torah, don't bend the rules, don't make me try to bend the rules for you. You like it, then good. You don't like it, what do you want me to renew, make the Torah new?
Someone says we don't judge Judaism by Jews. Is that true?
Yeah?
That's it.
So,
The basic Judaism has lasted for the Jews.
yeah. When I became observant, I was demanding. I was like, "Give me the truth. Don't sugarcoat me. Don't distort the truth. I want to know exactly." You know, you heard yesterday David here going on, freaking out. You know, he also had a near-death experience. He saw it with his own eyes. He's like, "Don't play with it. This is the truth. Don't think you can." That's why you said if Hashem is Rachamim and mercy. Of course, Hashem has mercy, but there's also judgment. And there's rules, and there's no bending of the rules. And trust me, in Shamayim the din is a din, it's a judgment. And bend it too much. So we need to know. I want to know exactly what happens, and I don't want to be lied to. And that's why I don't like also not giving the information to people. I think it's the worst attitude to really to do that. So not too long ago, about a year and a half ago, I came out with a certain lecture. You can find it online. Got like 1 million views, and it was a harsh message. And we have a crew that are running all the social media, and the guy who's my social media, and the guy that's running the Facebooks, he tells me, "Listen, you losing likes after this lecture. You losing likes." I don't think I care about my likes. I think I care if I have people that like my page or don't like my page. I can care less. This is the message that needs to be said, and it will be said. And he's like, "No, but you're losing popularity." I say, "I don't care if I'm losing popularity. What do you think I'm here running a popularity contest?" No, it's about specifically about the coming of Mashiach and the problems in our generation. So the point is that some people don't like hearing the truth straight to the face, but somebody has to say it, and if you don't like it, that's your problem. It's not the speaker's problem. You deal with it. And people don't like to hear it because now it's demanding. Now they have to make a change. Now they don't look so good, but that's how you really start operating. When you get too much kuchinu, you don't grow. Sorry to tell you, I'm 14 years. I'm around the world, dealing with tens of thousands of people in Kiruv. I see when you're too much nice and too much patting on the back, you don't grow spiritually. You only grow spiritually when the ground is hot. So you start jumping a lot. Like the Indians, how they run on coils, right? And the ground starts becoming hot. You start running fast. If everything is relaxed, then you're like, okay, well, keep Shabbat in 3 years, and the kids grow. So I know sometimes we tend to sidetrack from our curriculum, But
so important.
everything needs to be heard.
Get a little bit in, at least.
I rather actually maybe squeeze in some Gemara within
It's so
15 minutes.
That needs to go on natural news, that whole thing.
Everything is important because unfortunately a lot of the Torah is so distorted in our generation, and that's my personal opinion, and maybe a lot of people I know don't agree with me. I don't like that the Torah gets sugar-coated. And no, it's okay, you're good, you're a good Jew, and Hashem loves you, and you did a mitzvah in the last month, and you're good. That's not true. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah such a thing. If it says in the Torah you have to observe Shabbat, you think you have a discount from somebody? You think you're different than me, or anybody's different here? It says in the Torah clear. So the specific shul that I told you about, that the guy was driving for 30 years to shul, one can come and say, look at the success we have. We have 40 people in our shul on Shabbat. Yeah, but those 40 people are driving to your shul on Shabbat. Now they're going to come up to Shamayim, and they're going to say to the heavenly court, what do you want from me? I observed Shabbat. I did everything what the rabbi told me. Oh, really? Call the rabbi. And some rabbi is going to have a very big lawsuit in Shamayim. You told him he can drive, or you didn't tell him he can't. Now the weight is on you. Now that's why I said, depends what you measure success. If a person, is eating a kosher meal once a week, but still desecrating Shabbat, or married to a non-Jew, or eating, or whatever, so what's the success here? That one time a week he ate kosher? The success is that you design the person and you tell him, okay, now go be a Jew. And that person knows the truth and acts on it, and it's not that he shows up once a week to a service or to a party. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not chas v'shalom attacking anybody, or success is measured. For me, a success is that I can take a person and he's aware and he's developing his own teshuvah by himself. That for me, a success is when a person is observant, not 50% observant. 50% observant is you're missing something here, because it's either he doesn't have all the information, so he thinks he's fine, or you as a trainer. I look at it. I look at myself in cases that I'm like a personal trainer. I need to bring my athlete to the Olympics and to win the gold medal. And when the athlete fails, the trainer has a bigger failure, because you trained him. So as a trainer, you want to bring your student to the highest level. So if I have a student that I see him, then obviously I'm doing something not 100%, because I'm not able to bring him to that level. So for me, I see that success is, yes, some people you would say, they will never be observant. Who said such a thing? Why are you giving up before you started? And I know some people to drag them into the shul, that's a whole big thing, but I don't believe the approach that it's okay if he does 2 or 3 mitzvot, he can do more than that. That's not true. You can take any individual now and make him 100% observant. It all depends how you're telling him, what you're telling him, and how you're getting him to do it. But to tell on a person, just let him put tefillin once a week, that's what he can handle. Well, it's not. I'm different than anybody else. If I can handle all the Torah says, everybody can handle it. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah a person who lives in this geographic place of the world, or a person that is between this and that age, or a person who's suffering from this disability is exempt from the mitzvot. We all got the Torah exactly the same. And when we stood on Har Sinai, there were tall people, short people, fat people, crippled people, blind people. Everybody was there. The Torah was given to everybody equally, one koma achat, one level. So it means that any Jew now in the world, pull him from wherever you're going to pull him, if you give him the right guidance, he should be 100% observant with no excuses. So some people go after the masses. Let me just make, a lot of people do one mitzvah. Some people say, no, let me work systematically. I want to make one by one. And again, it's a very large, broad talk, because it's not everything is easier said than done. to really take under your wing a group of people and to make them observant, that's not easy. Besides that, a lot of people take credit for the fact that somebody else became observant. I was hosted somewhere, and the rabbi there, when he had an ego like a hot air balloon, I've never seen such a thing. We're sitting there was like a lot of people, and he points out, you see that guy? You see he's observed Shabbat? Because of me. I was like, wow. You see them? Is it? Because of me. And the whole Shabbat, he was pointing out at people, you see this? Because of me. Somebody wanted to tell me, schmuck, because of you. You just help them. Nobody does teshuvah because of you. A person does teshuvah because from the inside he wants to do teshuvah. You can only be guiding the person. You can just give the right information. You are just a billboard. And they come to you with questions and you have to give them example.
And it's all Hashem too, where it's not us.
Of course. But the person, anyone who does teshuvah, they did teshuvah because they, from the inside, they did the teshuvah. Yes, somebody approached them, somebody inspired them, somebody taught them. One can say, yes, I taught him for 5 years. Good, very nice of you that you taught him. A person does teshuvah only from the inside. Nobody can come now and can convince somebody to do teshuvah. That will work for a week. And then the person will jump out. You only do teshuvah because deep down inside you know that's the truth. You, as a person who wants to help, can just guide. And if you guide the right way, we're starting in a few minutes. If you guide the right way, then you're able to bring that person. You bring the just call it the Jewishness to the surface. But other than that, here's your wings, go and fly, do it yourself. Nobody can come and take credit. I heard not too long ago some rabbis saying, oh, I made 100,000 people do teshuvah. But you counted them? But you made a list and started counting, made a survey and everybody raised their hand, yes, you made me do teshuvah. You helped a lot of people to do teshuvah. You taught them, you gave them example, you guided them, you did whatever effort you did, and I'm not chas v'shalom taking any of that credit. Kol hakavod. But nobody can come and take credit.